Check, check. Testing, check. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Commencement for 2022 graduates. How are you, graduates? Well, let's get this started then. President Reed, deans, members of the faculty, administrators, honored guests, members of the graduating class and guests, welcome to the commencement exercises for the class of 2022. Please rise for the invocation, which will be offered by Dr. Timothy Swift, Professor of Management. Following the invocation will be the singing of the national anthem by rising senior Sarah Halupa. Dr. Swift.
God in heaven, today we are gathered to celebrate our St. Joseph's University students' achievements and to give thanks for the gifts of your Spirit that you have shared with them. Wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge. We ask that you grant our students a zeal for justice and peace to complement their knowledge. We ask that you help them light the way for those who will follow them or for those less fortunate in order to grow the ranks of the good people in our world. Our graduate students have accomplished much and endured great struggles, often balancing the demands of a career, family, and finances, along with their academic studies. They have made good use of your gifts. Lord, we ask you to continue to watch over these graduates as they leave St. Joseph's University, as our Jesuits often say, to set the world on fire with their love, courage, and determination. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Dr. Swift and Ms. Halupa. Good afternoon. We have gathered here today to celebrate the achievements of the class of 2022 and to express our pride and admiration for this special class of students. This ceremony is an important milestone in the lives of our graduates, and we're so pleased to share this day together. At this time, I would like to introduce Harold Bias, who will offer the student remarks. Mr. Bias has earned a Master of Science degree in Educational Leadership and Administration. Please welcome Mr. Bias.
Hello, beautiful people. I want to start off by thanking everybody that came out to celebrate today with the class of 2022. We stand here today on the cusp of the future. Before you in this crowd is future leaders, engineers, nurses, but most importantly, future leaders. One of my favorite quotes is, "Success is a journey, not a destination." Well, today marks a checkpoint on that journey. For some, the journey is just beginning, But for others, the journey began many moons ago. I stand here today a testament of what discipline, dedication, and determination looks like. I started my education next door at Gompers Elementary School. Our schoolyard and SJU was separated by a chain link fence, and every day at recess, I got to stare into and get a glimpse into the life of SJU students. Back then, I imagined being in this very spot you see me today. I'm a big quote guy. My mother taught me that it's okay if you don't have anything good to say, you can use the wise words of others. The late, great, notorious B.I.G. says, you gotta educate before you elevate. Well, class, we are all officially educated. It's time we all now go forth and aspire to be more and to do more. The Jesuit way teaches us to lead with love. Our job is now to make this world greater. Greatness is not limited by fear. Greatness knows that everything that is special is on the other side of fear. One of my mom's favorite hymns was, "We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He hasn't failed us yet." Those lyrics comfort me in tough times. It reminds me to lean on my faith and trust in God. Trust that God has a plan for me and a plan for all of us. We don't know what the future holds, but we know that if you seek God in everything you do, you can find strength in any storm. There are going to be some storms, but we can trust that with this skill set we learn here at this great institution, we will be prepared to be victorious. We transformed during this pandemic. Our metamorphosis is now complete, and the world is ready for us to spread our wings. Let us all go forth and be the change we wish to see in this world. Let's lead with love and adhere to the values built by this great experience. I'm going to end with the lyrics of "Lift Every Voice and Sing," because it reminds us both of the sacrifices of those that came before us and the hope of those to come. As you walk off this stage and out into this world, sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing a rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on until victory is won. Thank you. Everybody stay blessed. Yeah, I need it. Thanks so much.
Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Bias. We are proud today to recognize two individuals whose impact in career and life reflect the values honored at St. Joseph's University. Hobbs School of Business Dean, Dr. Joseph D'Angelo of the class of 1970, will now introduce our first honorary degree recipient, John D'Angelo. Dr. D'Angelo.
It is my honor to recognize former CEO of Inspira Health, John A. D'Angelo, of the class of 1974, for his 4-decade-long career in the healthcare field. Under his leadership, Inspira grew from 60 healthcare delivery sites to more than 150 before he retired in 2020. John led the $34 million expansion of Inspira Health Medical Center in Vineland in 2018, and he launched Inspira's Innovation Center to accelerate the development of patient-focused technologies and promoted programs to combat the opioid epidemic and address homelessness. John earned a bachelor's degree in accounting from St. Joseph's in 1974 and a Master of Business Administration from Widener University in 1986. He served as Controller of Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Vice President of Network and Business Development at Virtua Health, Chief Financial Officer at St. Mary Medical Center in Langhorne and Memorial Hospital of Burlington County, New Jersey, which is now Virtua Mount Holly Hospital. John joined Inspira Health's predecessor, South Jersey Healthcare, in 2000 as Chief Financial Officer before becoming Executive Vice President, and then as President and CEO in 2014. In addition to the Vineland expansion, John's retirement came on the heels of the health system opening a $460 million Inspira Medical Center in Mullica Hill and an adjacent cancer center. It's the most technologically advanced medical facility in South Jersey. John's personal commitment to caring for his community was realized in more than $500 million in community benefit activities and programs over his 6 years as president. He spearheaded programs to combat opioid abuse and addiction and was the founding partner of the Cumberland County Housing First Collaborative, a consortium of social service organizations, faith-based institutions, and government officials committed to tackling the problem of chronic homelessness. Now, you may have put two and two together here and figured out that John is my brother. So Mom and Dad are up there. Very proud today. So, it's with great pleasure, St. Joseph Awards John D'Angelo of the class of 1974, the Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
To introduce our second honorary degree recipient and commencement speaker A. Bruce Crawley of the class of 1967, I welcome to the podium Dr. Janae Burkhalter, Associate Dean of the Hobbs School of Business and Professor of Marketing. Dr. Burkhalter.
I am proud to welcome A. Bruce Crawley of the class of 1967, President of Marketing and Communications firm Millennium 3 Management, and Titan of Philadelphia Public Relations for over 50 years. Crawley was a member of St. Joseph's University Board of Trustees for 9 years and currently serves on the Board of Visitors for St. Joseph's Hobbs School of Business, which honored him with his Hall of Fame Award in 2014. A lifelong Philadelphian, Crawley graduated from St. Joseph's Preparatory School in 1963 and St. Joseph's University in 1967 with a bachelor's degree in marketing management. He went on to earn a master's degree in journalism from Temple University, where he was named to the School of Communication and Theater's Hall of Fame. After graduating, Crawley held various marketing and public relations positions during his 20-year tenure at First Pennsylvania Bank, including Senior Vice President and Director of Public and Investor Relations. Crawley left First Pennsylvania Bank in 1989 to form his own public relations firm, Crawley, Haskins, and Rogers, where he served as president and CEO. During the 1990s, the firm was one of the 20 largest African-American-owned advertising agencies in America. He established Millennium 3 Management in 2006 and consulted for nearly 100 major businesses and organizations throughout Philadelphia, including Aramark, Independence Blue Cross, McDonald's, Pepsi, and SEPTA. At the heart of Crawley's work and career is the drive to give back to his community. He founded the African American Chamber of Commerce of Philadelphia, which is the leading advocate for minority-owned businesses in the Delaware Valley and southeastern Pennsylvania. He also provides a scholarship in his name for the Ignatian College Connection at St. Joseph's, provides pre-college programming and mentorship for students at low-income schools. Today, it is the university's great honor to award A. Bruce Crawley, the class of 1967, the Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
It is now my pleasure to introduce the 2022 commencement speaker, A. Bruce Crawley.
Thank you very much. And I'm so honored, given all that St. Joe's has done for me over the years, to have this opportunity to address the next class of graduates, class of 22, to the world. I'm going to talk about advanced degrees or lifelong learning. Which comes first? Members of the Board of Trustees, President Reed, distinguished faculty and staff members of each of the schools, and every single one of the graduates here assembled, congratulations to the class of 2022. The minute you step across the stage to accept your diploma, I trust you will recall Alvin Toffler's admonition about the growing need to embrace change in the future. Quote from Toffler, "The illiterates of the 21st century," he said, "will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." In that regard, I guess I was always obsessed with seeking out and learning new things. When I discovered what the main Philadelphia library actually was and where it was located, I was off to the races. The main library, it turns out, was just 1.4 miles from our neighborhood in North Philadelphia, about 28 minutes by foot. I wasn't sure what my early interest in reading was called back then, but later I understood at the beginning of a commitment to lifelong learning. Fast forward now to my very first real job interview. After receiving my undergraduate degree, I was sitting in an office with a very stern and detached HR officer at a very large commercial bank. I was feeling nonetheless very confident, having recently earned my BS in marketing management from St. Joseph's. I was ready to ace that interview. I couldn't wait for the guy to start talking. He had read my bio and resume, such as it was back then. As I saw him scanning the pages in his folder, I began to relax even more. Then out of the clear blue sky, Mr. HR guy hits me with this. "I see that you've earned your degree in marketing management. I assume that that has entailed quite a bit of reading and test taking. But my question to you is, what can you do? If I hired you and sat you behind a desk tomorrow, what can you do for which this bank should pay you?" I don't remember reading that. I didn't remember reading that in any of the coursework we took. And I was a little taken aback by it. It was a wake-up call. I somehow eventually got through the interview, although most of what he said after the "what can you do" question was pretty much a blur. It was then that I began to feel that my degree needed to be fortified in different personal and hands-on ways to restore my confidence in launching my new marketing and advertising career. Since that time, lifelong learning has become very much a part of my way of life. It's not my religion, of course. I'm still officially Catholic. But I do consider lifelong learning an indispensable part of the way I absorb and understand everything I encounter. A simple definition of lifelong learning from Encarta is it's the development after formal education, the continuing development of knowledge and skills that people experience after formal education and throughout their lives. Others have called it a voluntary and self-motivated pursuit of knowledge for not only personal but professional reasons as well. It not only enhances social inclusion, active citizenship, and individual development, but also increases competitiveness and entrepreneurial skill sets. You've all obviously done well in what has been a credit and degree-driven academic environment, or you wouldn't be sitting here. Now, however, you should be at the point where you're ready to choose the topics that you are personally and fundamentally curious about, whether they've been included in a syllabus somewhere or not. Valamis, the European-based global consultancy, describes lifelong learning as the learning that occurs outside of formal education. outside of those institutions, such as schools, universities, or corporate training programs. Lifelong learning is not necessarily credit or degree-based. Maybe I'm in the wrong place, President Reed. Maybe I left the house today with the wrong set of notes. We'll see how this all turns out. In any event, lifelong learning has also been described as voluntary, with the purpose of achieving personal fulfillment. And if done correctly, it is certainly a commitment that extends throughout everything we do, everywhere we go, and everyone we meet, and quite honestly, any interview for which we sit for as long as we might live. Once I completed the bank management training program, I was beginning to feel pretty full of myself until the next unscripted learning experience presented itself. This happened at an evening class at Temple University while I was working on my Master of Journalism degree. It was a news editing course. We were all provided with a syllabus, included a description of the required textbooks. I learned that a single most important textbook for this course was unavailable at the Temple Center City campus, where I had taken virtually all of my classes. I had made a point that I would leave work and get down to the main campus to purchase that book as soon as reasonably possible. But I was vice president and public relations director at the bank by this time, and I was, quote unquote, very busy. In the first scheduled class, I had not yet had the opportunity to visit the main campus. Our very stern and unconventional adjunct professor happened to be a managing editor of a Philadelphia major daily during his real life. He noticed right away that I didn't have a copy of the textbook on my desk and immediately asked me to summarize the book's first chapter. That's the kind of guy he was. He asked us while seated in the lotus position on the top of his desk at the front of the room. When I explained that I had just unfortunately completed a very busy week at my office and didn't have time to travel to Temple's main campus to purchase the book, the lotus professor assured me that I would not be able to keep up with the pace of his instruction if I didn't have that book ASAP. At that point, he turned away from me with a dismissive wave of his hand and asked a fellow student to go out in the hall and make a copy of the first 10 pages for my review. I humbly filed away the message he was sending. By the time the next week's class rolled around, I was still prioritizing my responsibilities as a bank vice president over anything the adjunct professor could possibly require from me. And I had once again not made the time to travel to Temple's North Philadelphia main campus bookstore. As the second week's class started, this same adjunct professor wasted no time in calling on me immediately to offer my opinion of that week's assignment. Of course, I still didn't have the textbook, but I explained to him that I fully appreciated that my lack of the textbook might be a huge inconvenience to him in trying to teach the subject. I further explained that I had several major challenges at the office over the past week related to the bank's reputation management, and looking at me directly in the eyes, the professor said, "Oh no, Mr. Crawley, I clearly recognize that you have an important job somewhere downtown, but let me assure you, you're not an inconvenience to me. You're a pain in the ass. And if you don't know, somehow make time in your busy schedule to come to the main campus and purchase that textbook. By next week, I can assure you that you will fail this course." Trust me, I promptly carved out a precise time to catch the C bus into North Philly to finally purchase the book. In retrospect, the most important and memorable part of that course was not on any of the pages of the book, but rather in the extraordinarily brief interaction between me and the unconventional adjunct professor. It was the perfect lifelong learning experience and arguably the most memorable learning experience in my entire master's program. I know I'll never forget that conversation, and it definitely educated me and changed me for the better. My personal commitment to lifelong learning also drew me in 1970 to an interest in the Japan Karate Association, the leading Shotokan karate organization in the world. I confess I had no previous interest in that martial art up to that point. The Philadelphia Karate Club was located on 45th Street between Walnut and Locust. I would pass the building from time to time, look into the large display window, and watch the students all dressed in white karate outfits, participating in kata and kumite exercises. It was fascinating, and it very much looked like something else I wanted to learn. One day, I convened a meeting with my friends from Kakayumoja, whose members were among my very best friends in my own North Philadelphia neighborhood, dating back to our early teens. I began to talk seriously with them about engaging in the Japanese martial arts experience and recommended that we visit the Philadelphia Karate Club together to sign up for classes. About 2 weeks later, about 10 of us showed up at Mr. Okazaki's dojo on 45th Street and filled out all the requisite forms and disclosures. We found it to be a competitive, physically and mentally challenging us versus them experience. And it went on every single day. I loved it, and I was learning a great deal about an ancient Eastern culture and honestly about myself. Not surprisingly, after about 9 months, all but one of my friends had resigned from the classes. I continued to train about 3 days a week and was seriously focused on earning my Shodan rank, that's first degree black belt, as soon as I could reasonably do so. We students had no real clue about who Mr. Okazaki really was, but I discovered that he was a Zen Buddhist and a graduate of something called Takushoku University in Tokyo, where he was a student member of the school's highly respected karate team. Reading more about Takushoku, I learned that it was the second most prestigious university in the country, behind only Tokyo University. It had a reputation for being the university that attracted aspiring government officials, security and military leaders, and martial arts masters to its degree programs. I also learned that after World War II, the university's name was translated to development, industrialization, and colonization was changed by the Supreme Commander of the Allied powers because of his strong connection to Japanese militarism. We also learned that in 1953, Okazaki Sensei graduated from Takushoku and was immediately appointed the coach of the university's karate team. In 1955, he was appointed the head of the very first Japan Karate Association instructor trainee program under his own primary instructor, Nakayama Sensei. The trainee instructors after graduation were assigned to jurisdictions around the world as chief instructors. In 1961, Okazaki himself was assigned to establish a JKA presence as chief instructor in a small and unassuming karate club in Philadelphia. Gaining a bit more insight into Takushoku University's mission, I also learned this. The university's current chancellor is Japan's former Minister of Defense, Satoshi Morimoto. Past chancellors include 2 Japanese prime ministers, Taro Katsura and Yasuhiro Nakasone. Without my commitment to being a lifelong learning, I couldn't possibly imagine having an opportunity to be so close to such an enigmatic and iconic culture, and to eventually become a Yondan or 4th degree black belt myself. Over time, I began to participate in Shotokan sparring competitions on the East Coast, across the country, and in Japan, and in various world competitions. The more I traveled to Japan, Hong Kong, and China, the greater grew my interest to learn non-karate aspects of the Japanese culture, including private language lessons, and to travel throughout those countries when the competitions had ended. One day before training at the dojo, I reached out to a young Japanese woman whose name was Takako Suzuki, who had coincidentally just arrived in Philadelphia to take advanced degree studies at Temple University. After a brief meeting, she agreed to teach me Nihongo 3 evenings per week at $10 per session. 3 months into my language classes, I arrived at Takako's apartment and found an older Japanese gentleman, Jobu Suzuki, already seated in her living room. Mr. Suzuki, who turned out to be Takako's father, had been a shipbuilding engineer in Tokyo and had traveled to Philadelphia with his wife to discourage their daughter from marrying an East Indian man she had met at work. Mr. Suzuki, who could trace his family in Japan back nearly 500 years, and his Ainu wife's heritage back more than 600 years, strongly believed that his daughter's potential marriage to her East Indian fiancé would constitute to him a very unacceptable level of dilution of his family's bloodlines. He was in Philadelphia to stop that from happening under any circumstances. By the way, I also learned that one of the very worst things you can call a person in Japan is gaijin, or foreigner. All learning is not pleasant, but it is informative and can be useful in succeeding successfully in negotiating your environment. On the day that we met, I and Mr. Suzuki, a former Japanese infantryman in World War II, began a lengthy and sometimes heated discussion about global economics and journalism and his country's role in the war. The conversation was also complicated, of course, by the fact that he spoke virtually no English and I spoke hardly any Japanese. His daughter Takako served as our translator. Later that evening, after I had left the apartment, Mr. Suzuki informed Takako that from that day forward, he and Mrs. Suzuki would be responsible for my Japanese language lessons, which would be followed by a 5-course Japanese meal prepared each night by Mrs. Suzuki and in-depth reviews of the day's Japanese newspaper content. Mr. Suzuki, although he lived in West Philadelphia, was receiving on a daily basis packages of Japanese newspapers. All conversations until class was adjourned were conducted in Japanese. Unlike the classes taught by their westernized daughter, Mr. Suzuki refused to accept the $10 payment for the classes. As he explained, there is no amount of money that should ever be offered in exchange for knowledge. I like that. I thought these lessons would prepare me for any future visits to Japan or even to neighborhood sushi bars. I couldn't have been more wrong. I eventually discovered through visits to Japanese restaurants here and subsequently to Tokyo that many Japanese were uncomfortable in the presence of Westerners who tried to speak Japanese, no matter how fluently. In a recent article in the Chicago Tribune, for example, Shigehiko Toyama, a professor of English literature at Showa Women's University in Tokyo, explains, the majority of Japanese feel that foreigners are foreigners. Remember the term gaijin. And that Japanese are Japanese. And that foreigners who speak Japanese fluently blur those distinctions, and that makes the Japanese feel uneasy. Does that clear that all up? Whether it all seems logical to our Western minds or not, those who want to interact effectively with their culture in a world defined by the internet and supersonic jet travel would do well to learn things such as these. By the way, lest you're beginning to feel that all lifelong learning subject matter for us has been confined to Japan, we'll move now about 8,600 miles from there to Accra, Ghana. Another lifelong learning experience began innocently enough when my wife and I were in the midst of my 3-year-long obsession with daily road bike exercise. I was beginning to feel a little guilty about the fun and exercise benefits I was having on our bicycles and began to wonder how we might incorporate our love of bikes into something more useful, productive, and charitable somewhere in the world. After numerous internet searches, we were close to narrowing our investigations to West Africa, where many primary school students, we learned, traveled 15 to 20 miles each day back and forth to school by foot. In fact, we further narrowed our search to Kumasi, Ghana, and a woman named Bernice DePa, who manufactured and sold road bikes created from indigenous bamboo plants and other metal parts in her small factory. She, in the process, employed her neighbors. We had been reaching out through Ghanaians we knew to facilitate a contact with Ms. DePa. Growing frustrated with those tardy response times, we found Ms. DePa's phone number and made the phone call directly, cold. Ms. DePa was polite enough to the two intrusive American strangers, and she liked our basic proposition. Her company would manufacture the bicycles as usual. Our foundation would purchase and distribute a predetermined quantity of the same bikes for free to deserving, impoverished students as long as they maintained good grades. We called our NGO the African Bicycle Contribution Foundation and distributed 500 bikes in low-income Ghanaian families over a 2.5-year period. Our last distribution, which we attended in Ghana, was made to 85 students in the Ningo Pram Pram School District in the greater Accra region. That event was held at the Achimoto School campus, the school which the Ghanaians converted from the original British ownership and which has now educated many Ghanaian leaders, including Kwame Nkrumah, Edward Akufo-Addo, Jerry John Rawlings, and John Evans Atta Mills, each of whom were former heads of state of Ghana. It was certainly another step in the lifelong learning process for my wife and me to be simply holding our event in such hallowed ground. Despite the success of our bicycle distribution program, however, our foundation began to be concerned about what the young people were actually learning in their classrooms, even though our bikes were getting them back and forth to school on a timelier basis. We eventually dissolved ABCF and converted the foundation previous Pennsylvania Incorporated 501c3 to a Ghana-based charter. The new iteration had an IT-focused mission, and that mission was helping Ghanaian students and entrepreneurs to become leaders in the tech-driven global economy. Our first stage in reaching that goal was to distribute computer labs in junior high schools in impoverished rural regions in northern Ghana. We've also been active with the Foundation's governance leadership, recruiting new American and Ghanaian board members. They have included, by the way, our favorite business school dean, the Harvard School's Dr. Joseph D'Angelo, and Dr. Colin Anthony Romero, who I believe is here, who is an SGU graduate of the class of '67 and a long-term physician in Seattle's public health community. Another relatively new board member has been a longtime Ghanaian community activist, a man by the name of Abdul Manan, whom we met at the Philadelphia airport. As a new board member, Manan recently traveled to northern Ghana to oversee grassroots and community research and school-related construction projects. He has also been advocating for the collaboration with village chiefs, other local leaders, elected officials, and regional representatives of the Ghana Education Service. Unless we be accused of nepotism in our board selections, I feel obligated to disclose that my son, Christopher Bruce Crawley, is a recent addition to the collaboration's board member also. Coincidentally, Google, his current employer, has been expanding its own Ghanaian outreach in recent years. Thank God for our commitment to lifelong learning. Each of us, including Dean D'Angelo, seems to be learning a great deal about sub-Saharan Africa every day. We call the new Ghana chartered entity the Collaboration for IT and Communications Excellence. My wife, who is now the Foundation's executive director, actually traveled with me to Ghana's Upper East region to our demonstration project in 2020 at the Girls Model School. She carried in her luggage, believe it or not, 10 laptop computers, 2 large screen monitors, and all of the devices needed for IT communications and connections to Nabdam district for the launch. In retrospect, we were perhaps naive. No one could have explained how steep our challenge would be. You simply had to be there, and we were. We've since learned that establishing effective computer labs in rural West African schools, where many well-meaning instructors have been teaching IT on chalkboards without access to actual computers, where the schools don't have certified IT teachers, where many schools have challenges paying the monthly invoices from their internet service providers, is a much larger but more fulfilling learning experience than we anticipated. I am confident that many of you, having earned your recent degrees, will be able to embrace the rapid technological and social changes happening in the world and to help to impact it all through a broadened approach to lifelong learning. I'm also confident you will expand your data sources from simply domestic to global and realize that seeing the world through a Western-only prism just might not be enough to get us successfully through the next few years of the 21st century. In any event, I wish you every success in embracing the changes you will certainly face and overcome. Like those who have gone before you, you have all convincingly proved already that the hawk will never die.
Thank you, Mr. Crawley. Well, graduates, are you ready? We will now have the presentation of the candidates for degrees by the deans of the school and the conferring of these degrees by the president. Dean Angela McDonald will present the degree candidates for the Doctor of Education in the School of Health Studies and Education. Dr. McDonald.
Will the candidates for the doctoral degree in education please rise? These people have fulfilled all of the requirements established by St. Joseph's University for the Doctor of Education degree and are hereby presented to the President for the conferring of that degree.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of St. Joseph's University and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I hereby confer the degree of Doctor of Education on all those presented by the Dean and faculty of the School of Health Studies and Education.
Will the graduates please come forward as your name is called? As is our tradition, the candidates will be hooded by the chairs of their dissertation committees. Please withhold your applause and refrain from cheering until all names have been read. Tiara Grimes, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Terry Furin. Congratulations. Veronica Scott, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Terry Furin. Dr. William Bordak, to be hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Chris Heasley. Congratulations. Nicole Saletto, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Chris Heasley. Elizabeth Ford McNamee, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Chris Heasley. Congratulations. Jeffrey Hill, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Chris Heasley. Congratulations. Stephanie Sargent, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Chris Heasley. Tep Saylor, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Chris Heasley. Jennifer Cooper, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Amy Tarosky. Charles Hammond, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Amy Tarosky. Jewel Harmon Bradley, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Amy Tarosky. Congratulations. Stephanie Sturdivant, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Amy Tarosky. Shantae Antron Goins, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Aubrey Wang. Janae Ryder, Committee Chair Dr. Aubrey Wang. Kenneth Glover, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Aubrey Wang. Ann Nguyen, Committee Chair Dr. Aubrey Wang. And Nicole Patterson, hooded by Committee Chair Dr. Aubrey Wang.
Please join me in recognizing the awarding of the degrees to the Doctoral of Education Leadership Program. Dean James Carter will now present the degree candidates from the College of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Carter.
Will the candidates for all master's degrees from the College of Arts and Sciences please rise? President Reed, these men and women have fulfilled all of the requirements established by St. Joseph's University for the Master of Arts and Master of Science degrees and are hereby presented for the conferring of those degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of St. Joseph's University and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I hereby confer the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Science on all those presented by the Dean and faculty of the College of Arts and Sciences.
Graduates, you may now don your hoods. Will the graduates from the College of Arts and Sciences now come forward to be recognized? Please withhold your applause and refrain from cheering until all names have been read so that we can hear each name.
Harold David Bias. Sarah Renee Gonda. Leah Christina Givens. Leah Gigi Rose Hess. Bethany Holtz. Ryan J. Maloney. Jessica Asavia Atu. Carlene Nicole Burns. Rajdeep K. Saram. Mariatu Ba. Michael Alex Polinsky. Megan McMenamin. Grace Runyon. Joanna B. Sorto. Lauren Helga Chafani. Rebecca Nicole Webster. Praise Osemebe Oko Ihe. Maria Serino. Francesca Leah D'Antonio. Ashley Helen Mizuraka. Kevin C. Kaufman. Charla Gayleen Frazier. Kevin Warren Mosley Jr. Maura Webster. Judith Lorena Portillo. Dr. Eric Terrence Turner Jr. Kelly Catherine Regan. Imani Taylor. Erica Ambrose. Rebecca A. Hunt. Brian Chauvin. Samantha Taylor Jackson. Alexis King. Amanda Carolina Nava. Aaron F. O'Boyle. Renzo Goicochea. Kawina Ebony Cefantes. Elizabeth Griffin. Curtis I. Bronson Jr. Zena E. Elmarzuki. Deanka Newman. Juan A. Pacheco. Catherine Marie McPhillips. Jasenia Duran. Olivia Ann Fonte. Joey Chi Ying Lamb. Claire O'Malley Peer. Anna G. Brubaker. Anna Maria Danielle Berezowski. Ellie Renee Segan. Riley Elizabeth Gayton. Kasana Biala. Jasmine Faith Benda. Leslie Lynn Price. Sierra Keegan. Taylor Marie Moll. Luis Alberto Nunez. Dylan Bay Judge. Christine Francis DeSanti. Reagan Kelly Smith. Cassidy Lee Atchison. Elizabeth Joan Marie Sweeney. Richard Coney Jr. Andrea Claire Mueller. Carleith Maurice LaShawn Brown, Sr. Thomas Link Morgan. Christopher I. Bogus.
Please recognize all the graduates from the College of Arts and Sciences. Now, Dean Joseph D'Angelo, class of 1970, will present the degree candidates from the Erivan K. Hobbs School of Business. Dr. D'Angelo.
Will the candidates for all master's degrees from the Erivan K. Hobbs School of Business please rise? These men and women have fulfilled all of the requirements established by St. Joseph's University for the Master of Science and the Master of Business Administration degrees and are hereby presented to the President for the conferring of those degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of St. Joseph's University and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I hereby confer the degrees of Master of Science and Master of Business Administration on all those presented by the Dean and faculty of the Erivan K. Hobbs School of Business.
Graduates, you may now don your hoods. Will the graduates from the Erivan K. Hobbs School of Business come forward to be recognized? Please withhold your applause and refrain from cheering until all names have been read. I don't think that'll happen, but yeah.
William Edward McHugh. Sheldon Gray. Seamus Patrick Dolan. Sean Gary Gordon. Michael Allen Sisk. John S. McLaughlin. Chaline R. Downs. Tamika Nicole Bryant. Jende E. W. Muntu. Mekdes K. Kifle. Ray Andrew Osma. Kyrie B. Bolden. Sherry Lore White. Sandra M. Abrahams. Janae Greer. Christopher M. Taylor. Audra Marie Musamechi. Bryce R. Carroll. Nico Perry Dennis. Michael Ayub. Abdullah Ahmed bin Awad. Connor Robert Vanderbush. Shanielle Labrie Peoples. Rita Ashley Cunningham. Laura Mercedes Fuentes Ho. Jeannie Bracy. Callan Daniels. Omar Samaniego. Caroline Ann Tanis. Abdul Majid Sami El-Barki. Christopher Jesse Richardson, D.O. Laura Grace Lasbrogada. Taylor Ann Kelly. Emily Bendock. Tabitha Anasia Lopez. Sarah Allen. Allison Page Silk. Brett Everett Nance. Christian J. Primo. Rewa Muawin. Caroline Cecilia Stepchuk. Lauren Teresa Martinelli. Melissa McIntyre. Ricky Rigel Merriweather. Jeffrey Thomas Weir. Anne Louise Hazuri. John Zachary Pazillo. Sean McCauley. Matthew Patrick Kiyoki. Brian Raymond Venetianer. Karen Marie McHugh. Angela Steinga. Charles R. Close. Heather L. Birkenstock. Lauren Brooke Yancey. Joseph Lawrence Trudeau. Sean Thomas Lenahan. Andrew J. Simon. Jacqueline R. Pignataro. Deepa B. Patel. Kristen Ann Thompson. Thomas Michael O'Hara Jr. Nicole Anna McGlone. Brian William Nessel. Kate McAleer. Surabi Satya. Rosette Gito. Patrice Mary Sakalowski. William Patrick O'Malley. Alexander James Osborne. Maria Sarah Alt. Robin C. Cartledge. Ryan P. Alexander. Stephen David Simeonov. Richard Judson Weisenbaker. Matthew John Achman. Yulia Kuznetsova. Mylinda Pira. Catherine T. Dice. Amanda Marie Churchvara. Ina Tashi. Hema Priya Lakshmanan. Sundarararajun Sivashun Mugam. Fan Wu. Ruotink Huang. Jeremy Ellis Munoz. John David Dahlhoff. Erica Nicole Perone. Eleanor Ann Maduro. Jennifer Trong Fan. Osama Basim Khalaf al-Baghdadi. John Joseph Diamond. John James Marcantuno. Tawanda Berry. Bruce Barawada. Tylema M. Boyer. Kevin L. Mueller. Sally Murphy. John F. Burnett III. Preston John Lysenring. Alexander Yohanun Thimmons, Ph. Gabrielle. Alexander Yohanun Thimmons, PhD. Gabrielle Stotzel Madigan. Jenna L. Richardson. Jeffrey Thomas Padovano. Matthew E. Ferry. Emily Marie Lent. Alexander James Kerr. James A. Kinzer. Alex J. McNeil. Jillian Moran Comets. Ishan J. Kanetkar. Mary Cecilia Sheehan. Taylor Marinelli. Alexis Veronica Santarelli. Jillian Abby Tragone. Morgan Christy Todd. Amanda Rose Casal. Andrew Mark Lutz. James P. Mortimer. Dr. Vishal Fakey. Martin Scott Dawson, MD. Julianne Patricia Sees. Henry L. Worrell, D.O. Grant Frederick DeClement. Justin Patrick Keegan. Ansuman Toure. Christine M. DeFeo. Eileen Castaneda. Katerina Marie Andrizzi. Chastity Chantel Nadeau. Ryan Vaughn Reeves. Sarah Ingrid Johnson. Thomas Patrick Weeks. Brian Fitzpatrick Marion. Lauren M. Reed. Diana Marie Maldonado. Joseph A. Camara. Oluwatufumi Adeyemi. Douglas W. Huff. Shavonda Payne. Laura Cachopo. Felix Joseph Thomas. Candice J. Hightower. Sophia Fayez. Bradley E. Simon. Dawn Marceline Logan. Akansha Sinha. Anna Raquel Zalewski. Sunny Beth White. Rasul M. Al-Salahi. Peyton Baird Settlemeyer. Joshua Davis. Edlin J. Gonzalez Palacios. Patricia Marie Monahan. Casey Monahan. Shelby Marie Sykes. Jenna Jester Hamilton. Gianna Marie Liuzzi. Vilia Trevisan. Jean-Philippe Boresi Blee. Sumchit Badam. Niharika Bitla. Rajendra Kumar Vadivel. Michael Viola. Miriam Janet Lyons. Sean Miller McCann. Chinmay Manish Kumar Rajvanshi. Rajesh Katane. Jordan Alexander Shell. Alessandra Corso. Essence M. Watts. Mazeb Monica.
Please recognize the graduates from the Erivan K. Hobbs School of Business. Dean Angela McDonald will now present the degree candidates from the School of Health Studies and Education. Dr. McDonald.
Will the candidates for all master's degrees from the School of Health Studies and Education please rise? These people have fulfilled all of the requirements established by St. Joseph's University for the Master of Science and Master of Health Administration degrees and are hereby presented to the President for the conferring of those degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of St. Joseph's University and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I hereby confer the degrees of Master of Science and Master of Health Administration on all those presented by the Dean and faculty of the School of Health Studies and Education.
Graduates, you may now don your hoods. Will the graduates from the School of Health Studies and Education please come forward to be recognized? Please withhold your applause and refrain from cheering until all names have been read.
Atira Michelle McCormick. Nadira Macaulay. Botu Zulo Barkley Jr. Stephanie L. Tammany. Jessica M. Liccardi. Gina E. Zarenner. Neha Babashbai Kaswala. Jillian Rowlands. Morgan Catherine Labs. Nicole Marie Kinairi. Katie Elizabeth Catone. Paulina Joy Ablaza. Kimberly Rita Polishin. Nayana Churian. Jenna Audrey Broker. Danny Lee LaFave. Jacqueline A. Jedek. Abdullah Mohammed H. Al-Shamrani. Bridget Marie Hicks. Abigail H. Chenikin. Nicole P. Smith-Scott. Shayanne Reed. Samantha Wolf Bigham. Sydney Danielle Connolly. Alyssa Jane Matthew. Carly Elizabeth Henry. Caitlin Samantha Coviello. Abasade A. Fatero. Michaela Smith. Sine L. Allen. Sanchita Anthony. Werda Songhanpin. Andrea Nicole Narizi. Jennifer Dang. Nicholas Joseph Camusi. Theodore Zamansky. Corinne Elizabeth Butner. Ashley S. Barham. Nicole Carol Fenton. Deborah N. Armijo. Kira Elizabeth Reagan. Elizabeth Ann Sprague. Emily Mary Festa. Rashida S. Ho. Michael Klebon. Dana Marie Bowen. Auburn M. Evans. Erin Elizabeth Kane. Aurora Stephanie Blackwell. Alexander W. Bleedy. Amanda Lynn Miller. Bilquis Nuhu Larry. Marie Florence Jessica Toussaint. Terrence Julius Williams. Nathan Perfetti. Joseph Samuel Rogers. Sean Francis Cahier. April Manalak Balobala. Sinanor Anach. Jessica Mull. Patricia Catherine Latowski. Matthew Paul Braden. Alicia J. Colgan. Leah Elise Robinson. Ashley E. Fogarty. Cheyenne Naomi DeMont. Monique Cassim Kelly. Sarah Ann Bauer. Julie A. Ramastella. Kara Miller. Jasmine D. Stevenson. Amanda M. Calaman. Jacqueline Sperling. Bianca Michelle Madonna. Sophia Alexis Terry. Claire Harapat. Carla P. Ricalde. Emily Therese Ring. Allison Burns. Elena Renee Weisberg. Samantha Beretta. Julia Catherine Brawley. Ashta Ghanshyambai Patel. Mary Grace Gokowski. Dylan C. Leonard. Ryan Minho Chang. Katrina Bell. Adrian Oliver Harrison. Khalud Alazan. Christy Vale Hewitt. Carly Dargis. Luciani Melu da Silva. Sonia S. DeLuca. Undosi Nuosu Enzaribe. Amber Lynn Cox Preddy. Basma Nagib Khalifa. Maria del Carmen Santiago. Nicole Michelle Marola. Danielle Megan Schmidt. Victoria Kumba Niuma. Adrian M. Orak. Angela Robertson. Cassandra Marie Johnson Williams. Michaela Lachelle Booker. Orsia Moriel Kisangula. Aisata Diallo. Ragab Abdurrahman Ashari. Amal Abdul Hadi Al-Jawad. Fatima Humain. Huda Abdul Hakim Al-Margalani. Madeline Hinchy. Allison Hunt Buto. Tatiana Anthony. Aaliyah A. Staton. Abigail Rose McGrath. Mary E. Reardon. Devin Ross Harris. Sierra Burwell. Jacqueline Monique Clement. Shaniqua Lewis. Colin Michael Devlin. Shelley M. Taylor. Travis Mason. Amanda Lynn Flores. Afaya Nasser Al-Hussein. Tanya L. Weston. Sina Lee. Angela Nicole Martorano. Tyler Stephen Mazzeros. Kelly Ann Poitier. Kimberly Michelle Tremel. Bradley W. Dalton. Samantha Tompo. Diana Walsh Cunningham. Brianne Hagel. Morgan Taylor Marshall. Claudwin Celestin. Paul Bucknor. Megan Michael Thompson. Ambar Kusmani. Elizabeth Marie Soltis Johnston. Abhinaya Vanaparthi. Corinne A. Way. Jasmine Alicia Candelario. Rosmond Adewu. Robert J. Swift. Jonathan T. Shields. Brandon Jacobs. Rachel Adriana Hurst. Caitlin Michelle Gallagher. Jose A. Ramirez. Colin Sykes. Jashim Kieran Forsell. Sheba Masi. Julie A. Bowen. Megan Horn. Christy Ann Evans. Trisha Gregory. Hannah Owens. Elise A. Kistler. Anna Carla Crow. Seth Lawrence Borsick. Milton E. Johnson, Jr. Paige Catherine McCullough. Olivia Foster. Jennifer Rader. Sharon Yamile Romero. Nadine Beaupierre. Nicole Raciti. Carly B. Histing. Tyquin J. Campbell. Jason Zeman. Tania C. Hall. Shayla S. Shepard. Jane E. Peterson.
Please recognize the graduates from the School of Health Studies and Education. It's now my pleasure to welcome to the podium the 28th President of St. Joseph's University, Dr. Mark C. Reed.
I don't have a speech for you, class of 22. I really couldn't add anything to the wonderful remarks we already heard today from Mr. Crawley and Harold. I just want to say, on behalf of the faculty and staff of St. Joseph's University, congratulations to the class of 22. And I'd like you to also to turn to your left, turn to your right, behind you, look at the faculty, and give your loved ones a wave. Let them know you're thinking of them. The folks that are watching at home, they helped you to get here today. Congratulations. And our ceremony is almost at an end.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. I now invite back Sarah Halupa, a rising senior, to lead us in the singing of the alma mater.
Saint Joseph's hail and song we praise, our mother dear and fair. In life's grim battle we'll march on, with faith and strength to dare. For valiant deeds make stout our hearts, to prove your heirs are true. So come rejoice and with one voice pledge loyal love to you. Saint Joseph's hail, our blood runs proud to hold tradition's fame. For words of gold on history's scroll shed glory on your name. To honor God, to love God's world, crusaders for each fray. Against the sky our colors fly, deep crimson folds and gray.
Thank you, Ms. Halupa. At this time, the Vice President for Mission and Ministry, the Reverend Daniel Joyce of the Society of Jesus in the class of 1988, will offer the benediction. Father Joyce.
It's a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we've begun, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. The words of Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth capture the sense that we have come a long way, my friends. And this day we celebrate with deep gratitude to you, O God. We ask your blessing on our graduates who commence now to the next chapter of their life in this wonderful adventure that you have created for them and for us. We ask that you give us the grace to accept our St. Joseph's degree as a sign of accomplishment and a note of confidence as we step into an uncertain world to do the good that we are called to do. But let us, O God, never forget that the knowledge we have gained and the love we have experienced as members of our Hawk Hill community, let us in this love and knowledge be our most powerful weapons for fighting for a future that creates a world of justice, equity, and reestablished common good. May we be reminded of the powerful and eternal bonds we have as fellow Hawks in this St. Joseph's community everywhere in all circumstances. These bonds, O God, are never broken, and the love that is SJU will never, never die, because we've come a long way from where we've begun. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. Amen. We love you.
Thank you, Father Joyce. Our ceremony has concluded. We ask that you remain in your places until our honored guests have left the stage and the academic procession has marched down the main aisle. Graduates of the class of 2022, we salute you for your achievements and we wish you well on your journey.